Hi everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Facebook Live event this Thursday morning. Today I'm out here at the Schurmeyer Teaching Forest just south of Elizabeth, Illinois. And today's topic is survival skills. So if you live in the Davis County area, you may not think that you would find yourself in a survival situation because we don't really have a lot of wilderness areas around here where it's just acres and acres of untouched wilderness area. But a survival situation can happen even in Davis County. Let's say you're a hunter and you go out to check your trail cams, or you're up in your tree stand and you fall down and you get injured. It may take you hours before you're able to get yourself to the nearest road. An injury is a very common thing that can cause a survival situation. Or let's say your car doesn't start. That's another thing that can cause a survival situation. So throughout the session today, I'm going to talk a little bit about some just general rules of thumbs and some things to remember that can help prevent you being in a survival situation, and what to do once you find yourself in a survival situation. So the first thing I want to talk about is the rule of threes. Now, this rule of threes, maybe some of you guys have heard of this before. This is kind of a condensed version of a longer 3-hour class, and so we're going to fit it all into just 15 minutes here. So the rule of threes basically gives a good way for you to remember what survival elements are most important. So in general, people can survive about 3 weeks without food, and 3 days without water, 3 hours without shelter or clothing, something to protect you from the elements, and 3 minutes without air. So if you find yourself in a survival situation, this is just a simple way to remember which one of these survival elements is biggest priority. Obviously, air is the biggest priority. If you are in a capsized boat, that's a situation where you may not have air available to you, or maybe you're panicking about something and you're having a panic attack out in the wilderness area, and you have about 3 minutes to get yourself collected and figure out how to get some air to you. So 3 minutes to get air, 3 hours to get shelter or clothing, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So the shelter or clothing protects you from the elements. This is one thing that you can really focus on in order to prevent even being in a survival situation. If you are planning on going out somewhere for a hike, or even just for a walk somewhere, if you can remember these, how to dress for the weather and some of these key rules of thumb, then you will be much better off than those without this knowledge. So today I have some examples of some clothing, and I'm wearing specific layers that can help keep you warm. Now, I'm going to show you a few of these important layers, but if you are in need of some of these layers and you think about your supply in your closet, now is your opportunity to go to the Jdcf website or our Facebook page, where we have an apparel sale going on right now until Monday. So let's talk about some of these items. So I have about 3 layers on right now, one for wicking, one for warmth, and one for wind protection. So my first layer, the layer that's closest to my skin, is my red layer here. And this layer is called a wicking layer. This material wicks the moisture away from your body so that it doesn't keep the moisture next to your body and keep you cool. So if I were wearing, and this is kind of like a polypropylene kind of fabric, it's a synthetic fabric. Another good fabric to use would be wool. Polypropylene and wool are warm when wet. That's another phrase that you should remember: warm when wet. Some fabrics are warm when wet. If I was wearing a cotton t-shirt right next to my skin, that cotton t-shirt would absorb any moisture and it would help keep me cool and cool me down. On a cool day like today, I don't want to keep cool. And even in the hot summertime here in Illinois, I want to be warm at night, so it still gets cold enough at night where you're going to want these wicking layers next to your skin. So that's wool or polypropylene next to your skin. And then my next layer is a warmth layer. So material, fleece is also warm when wet. The fibers in fleece and wool, they allow air pockets to maintain while it's wet. So it's warm when wet. It keeps the air pockets, and air pockets are the main thing that keep you warm and allow the insulation around you. So I have wicking, warmth, and wind. This green layer is my wind and rain. So this slick fabric kind of cuts through the wind and sheds any water off of me. So if I have these 3 layers, just these 3 layers, first of all, you have peace of mind that you're going to be comfortable out there, and you're going to be a lot more warm and safe, and you're going to put yourself further ahead in a survival situation. These are layers I even wear when I'm out gardening or out hiking around. If it gets too hot, take a layer off. So if you don't have a layer, though, you can't put on something that you don't have. So I always bring more and then plan to take layers off if I don't need them. Other layers I have here are a hat. This is always good. The head and neck area is one of the areas of your body where you lose the most heat. Wool socks are really important. I wear wool socks almost year round just because they don't absorb moisture. And I also have some wool gloves. I wanted to show you the difference between gloves and mittens. Mittens will keep your hands much warmer because your fingers are together in there and they're staying, your warm fingers are all in one pocket together, whereas here they're kind of separated. It's not going to be as warm. But wool is also key for keeping you warm. And then here's another polypropylene base layer right next to your skin. And then this is just a rain jacket, rain pants also. This keeps you from getting wet when it's raining, or it also just keeps the wind off of you. So those are some of the layers that are really important. If you're wearing 5 long sleeve hoodie t-shirts, you might think, gosh, I have 5 hoodies on. Why am I not warm? Well, first of all, they're cotton, and if you pack on 5 different layers and don't allow any air pockets in your layers, it's not going to keep you warm. It's just going to restrict your movement and you won't be very comfortable. So if you just have the knowledge to dress appropriately in these different layers and think about the fabrics that you're wearing, you're going to be much more comfortable. So, and again, if you're thinking about, okay, maybe I need to go and buy a fleece jacket or a fleece vest or a rain layer. Maybe I need a rain layer. I'm going to encourage you guys to check out our Facebook page and our website. We have an apparel sale going on until Monday, and some of the proceeds will benefit Jdcf. So check that out. It has our Jdcf logo on it too. So it's a great way to support a local nonprofit land trust. So lastly, I want to show you this survival kit. This is a survival kit that I've had in my vehicle for a while. It has my parents' phone numbers right on the lid. And I'm going to show you some things that I have in my survival kit. I have actually used quite a bit of this stuff throughout the years. It's been in my little Kia Rio rolling around in the trunk for a long time, and I use stuff in here all the time. I have some bug spray. Most of you probably have that in your car. This is an emergency blanket. It's a survival blanket. Now, this isn't something super cozy and warm. I mean, it kind of looks like a tinfoil. So this blanket, if you need it, it's designed such that you can wrap it around yourself and it will reflect your own body heat back towards you. So it won't keep you super cozy and comfortable, but it will keep you alive. So that's your survival blanket, and it's easy to carry around, much easier than a big blanket. I also have in here a little first aid kit, so some Band-Aids, some larger bandages, and some tape. duct tape. Everybody knows that duct tape is very useful for a lot of things. I also have a flashlight and a whistle. So if you need to draw attention to yourself, an SOS signal, or if you need a flashlight if you're out after dark. I also have a rain poncho. If you don't want to carry a big coat, rain layer with you, at least a rain poncho will keep you dry. Here's a fishing line, some fishing hooks and some lures. Just a small amount, just enough, just what you need. And then I also have here a knife. A knife is very essential for a survival kit. I have this little, it's called a FRED, Field Rationing Eating Device. If you're in the military, you may have seen these before. It's a can opener and a spoon, not a very big spoon. And it's also a bottle opener. So I actually use this all the time in my own kitchen because it fits in my drawer better than a giant can opener. So I like to use these little things. So, and then I also have here a magnesium match. This is a magnesium match. So this is a way that you can start a fire without matches or a lighter. And I'll just show a real short demonstration about how this works. So you need a magnesium match here and your knife. On one end of the magnesium match is this block of magnesium. It's extremely flammable element. And then the other end here is a flint, a little bar of flint. It'll start to rain here. So what you do, you take your knife, and let's say I almost always have like a Kleenex in my pocket or something, or lint, or if you don't have anything like that, you can use birch bark or some other dry flammable material. And then you take your knife and scrape your magnesium onto this flammable material, okay? So you actually do this for a long time. You would build up a pretty big pile of magnesium, and I'm not going to do it long enough to do that. But then once you get a big pile of your magnesium flakes, and I can kind of see them here on the ground, then you turn your magnesium match over, and then you can spark your flint, and your sparks will fly off of the flint and hopefully land on one of those magnesium flakes. So it takes a long time to start a fire like this. The biggest time-consuming part is just flaking enough of the flakes, but once you get that, it starts immediately. So I have actually started a few fires with this magnesium match when it was all that I had. So the nice thing about these is you can get it wet and it works just the same, whereas if you have a box of matches, you have to get the waterproof matches. Other things that you should have in your survival kit should be matches, a compass. You should have a compass in your survival kit. Almost everybody has their cell phones with them these days, but you don't always have service, or your phone might go dead. So it's important to know how to use a compass, and maybe we can do that on another session. So that's a little bit about the survival kit. Now I want to show you a few examples of a shelter. Well, just one example of a shelter. This shelter was built by students in our Sunshine Acre program. They took a survival course out here with us last week, and one of the groups did a really good job of building the survival shelter to almost textbook specific and answer your questions.
We do have one question.
Okay, good.
Megan is asking, does Jdcf need any volunteers?
Oh, we sure do. Yes, so our volunteers have, yeah, we do need volunteers. If you want to email us at, well, you could email us at volunteer@jdcf.org. We have a volunteer coordinator who helps kind of get volunteers acquainted with Jdcf and some of the tasks that we have available. So yeah, we would love for you guys to volunteer. So The Sunshine Acre group is a group of students from the Northwest Academy. They come out here every other Wednesday, and last week they took a survival course. This is one of the shelters that they built. So you can see on this shelter, you can take a look in there, and you can see on this shelter there is this big ridge pole that kind of runs the whole length of the shelter. I call this a ridge pole. And this ridge pole is what is supporting all of these side logs and branches here. So this group did a great job of building these walls of their shelter so that at the ridge pole they interlock and keep each other up. So if you take your fingers and interweave them like this, and you can move your fingers back and forth, your fingers will lock into place, and it's much like the design of these sticks. They're kind of locking each other into place. Another thing that this group did, they made a low ceiling. So if you were to climb in here, the low ceiling of your shelter allows the heat to stay closer to your body. So the only thing that's going to keep you warm in your shelter is your own body heat. And which direction does heat go? It rises, heat goes up. So if your peak of your shelter is way up here, that means all the heat in your shelter is way up there too. And you're laying down here on the ground. So a low ceiling will keep that heat right next to your body when you're laying in your shelter. Another thing about the shelter, door is built on the downhill side of the shelter. This helps keep water and wind out of the inside of the shelter. So the water and wind can just go right around the shelter, and it won't actually go in the shelter. So,
How long did that take to build?
well, this group, I gave them about longer than I typically would give a group, but they did a really good job. So this took them about 45 minutes, and I gave them specific instructions about the height, no taller than your hip. And we talked about keeping the heat next to your body. And then the last thing that they did was they put leaves and debris kind of on the outside there. That helps keep more of the water out and helps shed the water off of the structure. They did a really good job. There's 3 shelters out here total that the groups have done. I thought I would leave them up until the next group comes out. They can see their friends' shelters and then try to build their own. So it's pretty cool. If anybody has any more questions about survival skills or shelter building or appropriate attire for being outside, now is a great time to ask. There's a lot of resources online for learning about survival skills and how to prevent being in a survival situation. One of my favorite books is it's called the Tom Brown Guide to the Outdoors, I believe. Feel free to explore on your own and just have some fun outdoors. It's a great thing to do with kids especially. So unless anybody has any questions, I will say goodbye and thank you to our sponsors, the Apple River State Bank, First Community Bank of Galena. Thank you for sponsoring our education programs. Thanks. Take care.